Welcome to Stuck in My Mind podcast, the show where we dive into the mind of a regular guy on his road to self-discovery. You'll hear everyday people just like you share the latest topics, personal stories, and things they've learned along the way. And now, please welcome your host, Wise.
And welcome to another episode. I am your host, WIZE, and I have a very special guest on today. He's actually the host. I'm sorry, not the host. I don't know why I think you're a podcaster, but he's actually.
I am too. I do that too. That's cool.
Okay, all right. So he is the creator of something that's amazing. So he's helping build up men. He's built up this brotherhood. I'm gonna let him explain what it is when he comes on the show. Welcome to the show, Clay Smeltzer. What's going on, Clay?
Hey, what's going on, Wise, man? I'm super excited to be here. And I'm Clay Smeltzer, and I help driven men become the best version of themselves when they join the Purpose Infused Brotherhood and get initiated into a family where they belong. And what we do together is we build, battle, and bond, and just create that brotherhood of men that come together that go through all the crap that we go through in life. And it's a space that we can actually have the conversations that we can have, and we can support each other, celebrate each other, and continue to live the lives that we actually really want to live. So that's what I do. That's what the brotherhood is. The Purpose Infused Brotherhood is all about.
And that's awesome, because it's this thing that men are supposed to be strong. Men aren't supposed to be vulnerable. They're not allowed to be able to let themselves be themselves. Like, we're human beings also. We have feelings, We have emotions. We need to learn how to express these emotions and to be able to share them with other people. And when I saw your profile, I was like, oh man, this would be great, because that's something we've been me and my nephew been harping about, is building each other up. We've been beaten so bad. Men are always like, oh man, this or this, and we're not allowed to, not allowed to show emotions. We have to be the strong ones. We have to provide for our families. Mm-hmm. It's not easy.
No, not at all. I totally agree. You talk about vulnerability. That's an awesome word. That is, because in our innate nature as men is to provide and protect. Well, if we go back hundreds of years ago, like, we'd wake up and our goal that day was not to die. So we could do that easily, and we could provide and protect in a way that was more what you would say masculine, tend to fields, go out, hunt, do those things, bring food back, shelter, all that kind of stuff, protect from marauders and all that kind of stuff. But nowadays, what do we really got to protect from? And I think that's where kind of the conundrum is, if we're hungry in that survival mode, because our brains work survival. But if we're in that, we're not really in a survival mode. We live in a pleasure-filled world. So how do we do that these days? And I think, that's where men struggle. I call it there's two greatest questions every man has. Am I good enough? And do I have what it takes? And those two questions right there, we can put into every aspect of our lives. So like for me, for you and I, as a man, am I good enough to be a good man? And do I have what it takes to be a good man? And those are the questions that always come up, and we always have to be willing to be able to answer and be honest with those questions. It's hard in this day and age, but we also don't have the space because, like you said, we're supposed to be hard, strong, never cry, never do this, never show emotion, don't show weakness. The problem with that is that puts up a wall of being able to tap into your greatest strengths, which is your emotions and everything like that. And we take all the stuff that we don't want to deal with about ourselves, and we shove it in the back. We're good at compartmentalizing. We just shove it back there in what I call the shadow, and our shadow just keeps getting darker and darker and darker until at some point in time, men break. And that's, for me, my story, that's what happened. I broke, and I had to figure it out. And that's where Purpose Infused Brotherhood came from, is because of where I was at in my life. And I don't want other men to go through those things. And I want to give them a space to be able to say, hey, you know what? Here is my true self. Here is how I really want to show up in the world as a man, as a husband, as a father, in my career, in my community, and here's how I'm going to serve. Here's how I'm going to serve and help other people.
And that's amazing. And for me, my story is I was widowed at 31, and I spent a lot of years angry and upset, and it took me some time, some therapy, and some self-reflection, and really just being able to reach out to people to get the help that was necessary for myself.
Yeah.
To be able to build myself back up, and again find an amazing woman to help me get back on my feet and help me back on the path and it's just been an amazing journey. It's like I was at my lowest of lows, where I didn't want to be around anyone. And that was, I wasn't hurting anyone else. I was just I was very self-destructive.
Yeah.
And so it was just me just angry and just not accepting everything that was going on in my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big one, man. You just said it. I teach ownership, and part of what going through what I went through and being on my couch right over here, in my couch is in my office here. And I was sitting watching a TV show at 35 years old. I'm 40 now. At 35 years old, my wife is sitting next to me. We're watching a Game of Thrones episode, and all of a sudden, the scene that's in the show, I have a complete panic attack where it's like, hey, I'm going to throw up. I'm getting sick, like hot, sweaty, all this kind of stuff. And I dealt with anxiety for 15 years before that point, and didn't tell anybody about it because I'm strong, I'm big, I'm tough. I'm the tough guy. I can handle it. But I'm sitting on my couch in a TV show having a panic attack. And I'm looking at my wife while she was sleeping during Game of Thrones. I don't know how that happened, but she was doing that. But so I'm looking at her going, man, if I can't take care of myself and provide and protect myself, how can I do it for them? And then what happens is we get to that point and it's the shame. So we start running this cycle of shame going, oh man, you ain't nothing. Like you're useless. You're worthless. You ain't no man. You're no husband. You're no father. You can't do anything. And just like you said, man, I was in that dark, deep spot. I wasn't hurting anybody else, but I was sure hurting myself. And as men, we were taught to internalize. And then we just keep taking it in. And we beat the crap out of ourselves over and over and over and over again. But and the reason why we do that to ourselves is because we don't want to actually deal with the stuff we don't want to deal with. And that's where I come into play. That's where it got to the point. That moment there was my oh crap moment. And I was like, I got to change. And I think men change for two reasons. One, because there's a carrot or something so rewarding out in front of you that you go for it. Or it's when the crap hits the fan and you're like, dude, something has to give because this isn't working out for me. And lots of times, for me, like I said, I was 35. And I see this a lot with the guys that we deal with. I see this a lot. It's not that everything's gone wrong in their life or something's real bad or they're in this situation, but it's we went through our 20s. We're like, yeah, we're going to try some stuff out, have fun. We find somebody, we get married, we have kids, and then what we do is we become the responsible man. So what I call the responsible man is you get up, you go to work, you do the stuff, you provide, you protect. But all of a sudden, we're finding ourselves in that monotony, and we waking up and we're like, dude, there's no fire in my life at all. There's no passion that I had before. I'm not chasing after anything. I'm not going after. It's just the same stuff over and over. And that was kind of my life. It got to that point where it was just so monotonous that I was doing everything for everybody else instead of doing things for myself. And then being able to, if I grow me, I can expand out in a greater way, but I wasn't doing that. I was just doing everything for everybody else because, well, that was man, like provide, protect, man up, do all those things. And it ain't working. It ain't working. It didn't work for me. It ain't working for a whole bunch of people. And that's what I'm here to do is help. And with you and just like you said, have that conversation that guys know, hey man, I can open up. I can show real strength. Real strength is diving into the emotions. Real strength is saying, listen, I'm angry as hell, and I don't know what to do about it. Real strength is sitting there going, you know what? Like I have anxiety, I deal with that, but here's how I utilize it in a better way. And it's diving into those things. I was just an insecure dude that didn't want to deal with anything. That's why I was at the position I was at.
But that's a lot of men. That's a lot of men that are in that position, that they don't know where to seek the help.
Yeah.
And it's really sad. And again, me and my nephew, we come from like, we grew up rough and stuff, but we made our mistakes and went out, and he went down a certain path and I went down a different path, and we've come back together again and found each other and started helping each other build something unique. Like,
yeah, that's awesome.
Yes, I saw him. It was him doing his YouTube that really pushed me to go and start my podcast. I had been wanting to do my podcast, but doubts and fears.
Yes, absolutely, man.
I'm like, nah, who would want to hear me? Why would anybody want to be on my show? Just putting my own self-doubt. And just seeing him do it and step out of his comfort zone just made me go, you know what? I was on the phone with him one day and I just decided to press record, and that's how it started. It was 5 minutes, and then it just grew from 5 minutes to 7 to 10 to 20. And it just to the point where now I'm doing 35, 45 minutes episode, sometimes an hour, depends. And the time goes like nothing. Like, before I would freak out, like, oh man, what am I gonna do? How is this episode gonna go? Now it just goes. Like, I set up my guests, I will speak a little bit, and I'll read your profiles, but for the most part, it's not scripted. It's more us having conversation, and you coming on and be able to explain what you do, but at the same time, just be you, just be yourself. Correct. And not sound like a robot. Like, oh, you tell your story, and it's just a conversation where people can just be like, hey, they're just regular people.
Yep. That's what I love. I just I'm always about transparency. I'm just real. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and sugarcoat anything. And because I lived, how do I want to say it? I hate fake. And the reason why I hate fake is because I was so faked most of my life. That's why. Up until 35, when I really actually started to get real with myself, I was fake. I was Mr. Happy-go-lucky, yet in my mind and at home or in private, I'm sitting here having anxiety and panic attacks all the time. I didn't show it to anybody else. I didn't even show it to my wife, But why? Because I didn't want to deal with what I didn't want to deal with, because ultimately I knew it was going to suck and I didn't want to go through it. I didn't want to deal with the emotions that came with it because I hated the emotions that came with it already. I didn't want to do those things. So I just acted like it didn't exist, and it didn't work out too well, and that's where, for guys, you have to have that resource. And one of the things that you said, I think twice already, is that we have to be willing to ask for help. And so many times we want to go through life and we just want to say, hey, no, I got it. I'm a tough guy. And especially, like, I'm an athlete, so I'm especially that way. You know what I mean? It's like, let's just grind through it. Like, put some tape on it and keep going. Well, putting some tape on it, keep going, that did more harm than it actually did good. And that's where it's like, you got to actually, when you just keep putting tape over a wound, it festers, it causes infection. And until you take it off and you actually dig down and get all that dirt, grime out, and all that stuff in the wound, it's not going to heal itself. And that's where a lot of times we don't want to go because it hurts too much. I've been divorced twice. And when guys talking about divorce is hard, like, they don't want to do it. They don't want to go. I'm married 3 times now. So I'm like one of the small statistics, because after you get hurt once, when a man gives his heart, he gives it fully. And to have it crushed or broken, that's a hard thing for a guy to deal with. And having that happen twice and for me to continue to allow love in, man, that's a lot I had to go over, because there was a lot of stuff behind that. But the hurt and the pain, I didn't want to deal with. I just wanted to act like it didn't exist. But until I was able to deal with it, I wasn't going to find a relationship like I have now with my wife. And the only reason why I have the relationship with my wife now that we have is awesome is because I was willing to go to the depths that I didn't want to go to and deal with the stuff I didn't want to deal with.
Yeah. And that's something that men don't really like to go. We don't like to delve into what is the reason why we're angry or why we're doing the things that we do. It's just something but you're taught, it's ingrained in you from a little kid, from a little boy. Oh, little boys, boys don't cry. You're a tough guy. You're supposed to do this. That's something, especially because I'm like you. I'm in my 40s. So we come from a generation where we actually played outside. We played sports. I played football. I played baseball. And it's for us, it was always, if you fell, get back up, scrape it. Like, even like you can be mangled and like get back up and just walk it off.
Yep.
And that's how we
tape
were
it
brought
up. Tape it up. Go. Tape it up and go.
That's how we were brought up. And so now that I'm in my 40s and I'm really getting into more self-development, I'm getting back into self-development and learning more about myself and really discovering what I love to do, because I love podcasting. I didn't know I was gonna love doing what I do. I've been doing this for a year now, over a year. I just released today episode 110.
Dude,
and I have
awesome.
so many more. I have so many more in the bank that I'm trying to edit and get them out as soon as possible, so I can start getting caught up and not have such a wait between releases.
That's a good problem to have, man. That's a good problem.
I know, but it's kind of bad to reach out to guests like 3 or 4 months later, like, hey, I'm finally releasing our episode.
Yeah.
Like, oh, really now? Even though some of them are cool, like, hey, cool, that's great. Send me the link. But I just want to at least I don't want to have them wait that long. And so I need to really get it up and start just dropping 4 episodes a week if I have to.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think if you're having conversations like we're having today, absolutely, because it's going to help a ton of people. You know what I mean? And that's really ultimately the thing when it comes down to like men and helping each other out, man. When you do the work on yourself, then you can expand out to everybody else. It exponentially grows. See, what we try to do is we try to serve everybody else without serving ourselves. And what we do is we deplete our cup, and our cup is gone. It's not filled. There's nothing in our cup. But we're still trying to give coffee or tea or juice or whatever it is, to everybody else. And there ain't nothing in there. We got nothing in our tanks. And when we have nothing in our tanks, how can you possibly give to other people? Just like if I can't find love in myself, how am I going to give love to anybody else? My kids, my wife, anybody else? How am I going to do that? I can't, because I don't even have it in myself, and that's where it's like, when you look internal, we can exponentially grow external. And that's the whole purpose and that's one of the reasons why we have our brotherhood is it's men coming together to grow internally. So we make ourselves better. But when we build, battle, and bond together ourselves, man, what's that do for the family unit? Dude, your family unit gets stronger. And that's like the conversations we're having here, the conversations I have. We run 3 different groups all across the United States. And the conversations I have in those, and the conversations and how those men have grown, but not only they have grown, their wives, their kids have grown. Like, it is like, I'm like, wow, like when you go to help, just like what you're doing here, you're sharing. Men need to share more. And when you start sharing, it's like a cathartic. Is that the right word? I think that's the right word. Like it just feels great. Like it allows you to expand because it's getting the stuff out. When we keep everything in the back and we don't bring it forward, you can't deal with it. You can't share it. You can't learn from it. You can't do anything with it. It's just stuck. And we got to get it front. Men got to share, because we're in a day and age right now where there's a lot of like pressure. To me, I don't know for you, but probably there's like all this pressure on men to be like, or like, hey, you screwed up the world or stuff like that. It's like, what?
No. You're absolutely no. You're absolutely right. This is something me and a couple other people. I haven't had a lady come on and she's like, she came on and she was like, I'm here to help uplift men. She's like, she has a program. Like, and she's like, she sees the attack on men, and she's like,
that's great.
And she's like, I'm here to help, and and it was a great conversation. And like you said, no, I swear to you, the last 3-4 months, I've had some of the most amazing guests. I've had some great guests that have. That's why I want to get them out, because they're so powerful and so positive that people need to hear them and
correct
and need to share. So that's why I'm really trying to get it together and get them all out as fast as possible. So, but me being the way that I am, I always have to make sure that, hey, I have to make sure it sounds good, the quality is good, and put it out then. But I have to really start getting my act together and put it in a box.
And just let it rip, man. And that's what, like you said, the conversation back and forth, those are the ones that I love listening to. Those are the ones I like having. I don't like going into something scripted. Just because it feels unnatural to me. I just want to be me. Like, and that's one of the biggest things is, like, for men, we try to be everything for everybody. But the problem is we're never who we need to be for ourselves, which sucks. And I think that's where the biggest pressure comes from and then we have history, and then we have current society, and then all this other stuff. And it's like, nah, man, I just want to be me. Like, my whole goal is for you just to be exactly who you are, be the best version of yourself, so you can go out and impact a whole crap ton of people with your life. And that's the whole goal, and that's what you're doing with this podcast and having these conversations. So I applaud you, man, for being able to do that and having the courage to step up to actually talk, because guys don't want to do that. And that's where it is uncomfortable. It's weird. When I first started, I went at 35 years old. I started putting videos out on Facebook, telling how I felt. It was weird. It was weird as hell. I was like, it's super weird. But I was like, I felt better after it, and it kept going. I at that point in time, I call it wilt, what I learned today. And because the thing is when we get into that responsible man aspect and we just start going through the motions, or we get run over by trying to be so much for everybody else and not being anything for ourselves, we get into the mode of, like, I don't know who I am. And there's no intention for your day. You're just waking up and going through the motions. That's what I was. I woke up in the morning and I'm like, God, I'm getting up too early. Then I'm also I teach education, so I teach 7th grade math as well, along with running the Brotherhood. So, like, I would wake up and drive to school going, like, I hate this, like, because there was no intention behind me going there. It was just for money at that point in time. I was a burnout teacher, and that happens very quickly in that profession. And it's like, but I just kept doing it. And then I come home. Then, go back to work the next day, come home. Then the weekend came. We did a couple fun things. Summer came. We did a little vacation here or there. And then all of a sudden, it's back in the same rat in the race. And it's like, dude, is this all there is to it? But there was no intention for my day. As soon as I started to realize and actually dig deep into who I am, why do I make the decisions to do it that I do? What's my purpose? Why am I here on this earth? Like, some people ask a question like, oh, you do, like, because I also help men do, find their reveal their purpose. And they're like, oh, your purpose. And then I get like, oh, that's like hippy dippy stuff. I'm like, dude, like, do you know your purpose? Do you know why you're here on this earth? And they're like, I ain't talking about that. And they just walk away. And I'm like, you don't have a conversation about it? I'm like, why? Because it's uncomfortable, because you never took the time to actually think about it. And neither did I. I didn't do it for 35 years. And I'm like walking around the earth going, why am I here?
People think their purpose is to work their jobs and provide for the family. Like, dude, what? No. This is the reason you're here. You're supposed to do something. You're here for a reason. And honestly, for years I didn't know. And once I started podcasting, I found my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, what? And like, who knew that I could do this? Like, it wasn't something that I was thinking about. It wasn't something I was really planning. And then once I started recording and I released the first episode, I'm like, oh man, this is cool. This is something I get to speak to people. I get to learn,
Yes.
and I grow as a person. This is awesome. Like, why would I
Absolutely.
want to do this? So for me to find, and like I'm 45 years old, and for me, and my wife could have easily been like, dude, you starting a what? You're doing a what? Why?
Yep.
No, she's like, no, she saw I was dedicated and serious about it,
Yeah.
and she's been behind me 100%.
That's awesome.
And that's all I can ask for is for her to have
Yeah.
my back 100%, seeing
Yeah.
that I do put the effort, because I've come a long way. If you look at where I started, even now with me transitioning into video,
Mm-hmm.
it was a guest of mine a few episodes ago that I recorded probably a couple of weeks ago. I was like, they're like, oh, you streamer, so you record you're gonna record this, right? I'm like, I usually don't record. They're like, oh man, that you need to record. They're like, that's just another form of content. That's some more
Yeah.
content for you. You need to use that. You need to
Yep.
record. And I'm like, okay, record. She says, see, that's great. You're great. She says, you know what? You're coachable. And I said,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
They said that's the first step. You're coachable. We told you to record this, and that's what you did. And since then, every interview I've had since then, I've recorded video.
Good. Yeah, that's
So
awesome. Yeah.
it's
And
again, you have to be coachable. You have to be able to
absolutely.
accept. You have to be able to accept people's. Hey, listen, there's people that know more than you do.
Mm-hmm.
Like someone taught me how to use OBS, and I've come up with some. Like today, I finally know. Like, because on StreamYard, I was able to change my green screen using just StreamYard.
Gotcha.
But now today, I finally learned using OBS because I use OBS to do my streaming and other stuff. How to change my green screen without using StreamYard, just being able to use it. So these are things I'm learning. I'm going to YouTube and I'm discovering all these things, and it's just fun, and I'm having a great time.
Yeah, and that's what it should be, man. The things that you love and are purposeful to you, it should be easy. It should be fun, and it should be able to. At the end of the time, you should know, like, hey, I gave it my all, and my all has brought value to other people. Because at the end of the day, we want to look back at our life, no matter when it ends, because we all know it will. We just want to look back and be like, dude, my life was worth something. It was meaningful. I had purpose. And again, like a lot of guys, like anybody who's listening to this right now, I want you to look at yourself, especially men. Like, look at your life right now. Ask yourself that question: if I died today, right now, what would my life mean? Was it meaningful? Was it worth it? Did I do something with it? Because honestly, I'm just told you my greatest fear. My greatest fear is to get to the end of my days, look back and be like, dude, I didn't do nothing with my life. It was purposeless. There's nothing for it. I just kept doing the same thing. And that's where it's like, now purpose infused men or purpose infused brotherhood, that's what it's about. It's about knowing exactly who you are, taking those gifts that you have been given in your life by if you believe spiritually, whatever, God or stuff like that, cool. Well, I don't care. Like, whatever you believe is what you believe. You believe that, just believe it and own it. But given the gifts that are inside of you and sharing that with the world. And every single person, there's something different. That's what I love is like we have guys that, like we have blue collar guys, we have white collar guys, we have no collar guys. We got it all. But there's so many experiences and different conversations that we have in there that we learn from every single brother in there. And that's the beautiful thing is like, I'm learning from you, you're learning from me, and everybody listening to this learning from each other, and that's what it's about. Taking your gifts, knowing exactly who you are, and then going out and living purposefully with intention every single day. Instead of waking up just going, I just keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's no fun. That ain't fun.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I have like my day job. I have an easy day job. I make good money, so I don't complain. But eventually, I'm doing the things that I'm doing so I don't have to work for anyone else.
Yeah.
Because I want to be able to go on vacation when I want to go on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't want to punch a clock.
Nope.
I want to be able to do the stuff that I enjoy doing,
Great.
and it's going in that direction because there's so many things falling into place. I
Yeah.
recently picked up my first big client, and so things are happening for me to be able to eventually be like,
Yeah.
hey, thanks for the job, but it's time for me to move on.
Yeah. And the cool thing is that's in your zone of what I've been taught about, the zone of genius from my coach, Dr. B. And she always talks about that, like your zone of genius. That's what you're in. You're in that zone of genius, which is your purpose. You're in your purpose. You're doing the things that fulfill you and that are filling your cup up. So when you're doing the podcast and you're connecting and you're learning, you're growing, you're sharing, and you're bringing value to the world through these conversations and what you do, think about your cup. Your cup's full. It's overflowing. You're not taking out of your cup and nobody's drinking from your cup, and only you are putting in your cup, and people are getting the overflow. And lots of times we're like, hey man, I'm going to give from my cup, give from my cup, give from my cup. Well, then I'm always trying to refill it back up. Then I give, refill it back up. No. I'm going to build me. You're going to build you, and you're going to overflow that thing. So we don't have to worry about it. I'm always going to be good. I'm going to be on point. I'm going to wake up with intention every day. And because of that, my cup overflows, and whoever likes the taste of my overflow, have whatever you want, because it's going to stay overflowing. But again, going back, like as men, especially, we just try to serve everybody else. We try to be, like in marriage and stuff like that, or in relationships, we try to be what the other person wants us to be instead of just being us. In our careers, we'll be what our boss wants us to be instead of being us. And it doesn't work out. It's time for being everything to everybody else to be done, and for you to be you. I love that saying, you to be you, and make sure that you just share it with the world. That's what we got to do, man. We have a whole bunch of people doing that. This world would be a better place.
Yeah, definitely. And I've met some amazing people podcasting. The podcasting community has been like, me learning OBS was actually someone I interviewed, and we had such a great conversation that he was like, hey, I want you to be an affiliate for this program that I'm doing. You get to take the course for free, of course. And I'm like, free's good. Okay.
I like free.
I'm not going to complain. And I learned how to use OBS. Even though OBS is a free system, but you have to learn how to use it. So by me taking the course, I've learned the basics, and then I go on YouTube and stuff and video and watch a video on how to do certain things. Like today, I was finally able to change the green screen. And it's just being able to learn these things, these new skills, and develop them. And because now in the year's time, I've added different titles: CEO of a production company, editor, producer. Now eventually I will be doing video editing and all this other stuff. But I'm adding value to myself. I'm adding skills that I'm able to share with other people.
Yeah. Which brings value to them and keeps you in your area of fulfillment, which is what we need. We need people, men, women, to be in their area of fulfillment, in their zone, what they're good at, in their gifts, and continue to keep going. That's like, I'm an educator, and one of the things that I always say, like, in education, it should be about finding your gifts and helping you be able to do that. So, there's a lot of people with different views and stuff about education and things like that. But to me, that's what education should be about. Whether you feel it's good or not, like whether you feel it's good or not.
Our school system doesn't prepare us for the real world. It really doesn't.
Listen, I'm a school teacher. I agree. I'm like the black.
I went through the public school system here. It didn't prepare me for life. Life prepared me for life. Everything I went through in life prepared me for life. Correct. So things that they should teach us, like finances, how to balance a checkbook, how to teach us skills. Like when my brothers and them were going to school, they were actually teaching them how to be mechanics in high school.
Yeah.
And then when they decided, we can make money by teaching people these skills, that's when they started closing these schools and started opening these trade schools that you had to pay to gain these skills.
Correct.
So they took it away from teaching you for free in regular high schools to making you go to these trade schools and paying into it and learning. So
I do. Part of what I do too is educational work, professional developments, and things like that, and really trying to get the educational community to understand that, we're public servants. We serve the people. We don't serve our own thoughts. Like, we serve the people and what their needs are and what results are you going to get them. So like in my classroom, I state like, hey, here's what I'm going to help your kids do. I'm going to help them take ownership, accountability, and communicate effectively. Oh, then I'll teach some math after that. Like, but those are the top 3 things. Why? Because that's what you're going to use for your life, and that's where it's like having that revamp and stuff like that is being able to look at what are all these things that we're trying as people, as humans, to find value in. When we do that, we have like the podcasting world. That is an amazing world to be able to find value, hear awesome conversations. If you're a podcaster yourself, I've had I run the Purpose Infused Brotherhood podcast as well. And it's like had so many awesome conversations with people I've never would have had in my life if I didn't do that. If I didn't take a chance to be like, I'm going to put this out here. And like you said, like I had imposter syndrome. I had who wants to listen to me? Just like when I was going through my stuff and moving into developing the Purpose Infused Brotherhood. And I'm like, who's going to want to like join that? Who's going to want to do that? Like, but you got guys that are like, man, I need a group of men like that I can count on, that I can be there. Like I can sit here, I can cry in front of, or I can say, dude, I'm pissed. Like, and then that this is happening, I'm going through, or like we could celebrate together. But I know for sure they're going to help me keep myself accountable, and they're going to help me take ownership of myself. Because all the brothers know that are in there, like, listen, I ain't here to hold you accountable. I ain't your dad. I ain't your mom. I ain't your babysitter. I ain't any of that. You are your own man. But I will, if you said, hey, I'm going to do this, and you don't take ownership of that or accountability of that, I will ask you, like, hey, did you take ownership and accountability of that? And why not? How can we make that better? How can we assess, reflect, and adjust so that you can be the man that you said and you're telling us you want to be? That's what we're here to do. And having a community like that, like, that's awesome. But was there imposter syndrome? Was there like, hey, are people going to listen? Yeah. Dude, we bring it. And guys, we're good at this, man. We bring up all these different scenario, crazy stories in our head. We're like, I mean, it's never going to happen. And we actually look at the reality of it actually trying to occur. We're like, dude, that's just stupid. But but they still come up in our thoughts.
It was crazy because I had to go and like a lot of my guests I found through Facebook groups and stuff like that. And then I hooked up with a publicist, and he hooked me up with some celebrities and all that. But for the most part, I really grinded and joined different groups and different sites to go find my guests.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, a lot of people were like, the first questions were, "Oh, how are your numbers? How many people listen to you?" Like, and I'm like, dude, I'm just starting out, man. I don't know any of that stuff yet. and it would just blow me off. But then you get the occasion when someone like, hey, yeah, sure, I'll come on your show, and we had some great conversation and stuff like that. But now it's to the point where I have people reaching out to me like, hey, I just heard your podcast. I have a guest that would be awesome for your show. I'm like, cool, awesome, let's do this. And it's the energy that I'm putting out. It's the energy and the vibrations that I'm putting out, and I'm attracting the people that I want on my show.
Absolutely, man. The law of attraction works in everything, and when you put that out, and you mentioned about your wife being so supportive of what you're doing. Well, that's because you're putting out the energy of purpose, and women are very attracted to men with purpose. They're not attracted to men who ain't do nothing. Like, well, sometimes it looks like they are, but it's like you're driven to do something to bring value to the world. Therefore, it's more of an attractor, and that's what you're bringing into there as well. And that's what I tell the guys that we work with, and anybody out there that's listening and stuff like that. Like, listen, like what you put out is what you get back. If you think a bunch of junk about yourself and negativity, you're going to get a whole bunch of negativity back. But if you put a bunch of positive out, you're going to get a positive back. But we also have to understand the reality of the world is negativity festers and grows quicker than positivity. And that positivity, you just have to keep putting it out. It will. Your light will shine through. And every single we always talk about in the Brotherhood the lighthouse. Instead of being a tugboat where you're always going out and saving, wearing yourself out, we talk about being a lighthouse. And what the lighthouse does is it stands its ground. It knows exactly who it is. It doesn't move. It doesn't bend. It can go through the biggest of storms, but it continues to keep shining its light. And your goal as your purpose is to continue to keep shining your light. And as you build your purpose, you build who you are, you get that strength, you get that balance, you get that center. Your light shines brighter, which reaches further. But sometimes the fog comes in and it's pretty heavy. It doesn't go too far, but then it lightens up and it shines further. And we just keep building our light. We keep shining our light. And I tell guys, just be the lighthouse, but you got to know what makes your light shine. And if you don't know what makes your light shine, then you got to surround yourself with people who shine their light. And that's one of the things too. You are who you associate with. And if you're hanging out with a bunch of people who are negative Nancy's and just like complaining and making excuses about not getting what they want in life because this and that and all that kind of stuff, well, that's what you're going to find in your own life because you've attracted that. If you hang out with guys who are going, moving, shaking, doing things, and shining their light, you're going to shine your light too. And so that's one of the things. I love the tugboat lighthouse analogy, and I use it all the time because it is, man, just shine your light. And that's what you're doing. And that's what I love. And I love seeing that. I love seeing guys doing it. I love seeing guys stepping up and shining their light in a world where sometimes it looks pretty dark because it's needed.
Yeah. Because honestly, like my first couple of episodes, it was just me talking and ranting. And then it was cool. I was feeling, I was loving, I was enjoying the podcast, but it wasn't catching me. And then when I switched to being able to, I interviewed a coworker of mine. She's an entrepreneur, and she had left the job to go do her business full time. And I just had her on, and she spoke about the business and why she did it. And having that conversation made me realize this is what I want for my podcast.
Yeah.
Being able to have regular people come on and share their stories, because who knows, somebody else might be out there on the fence about starting their business, and they hear us and they're like, she did it. All right, I can do it. Which I had happen when me and a high school friend of mine, we did a episode together. He is killing the market in New York, in Brooklyn, New York, in the real estate game. And we just talked about manifestation, goal setting, and all these different, all these different things.
Yeah, it's powerful.
We had when I released the episode, I had another high school friend of mine reach out to me and told me, hey, listening to you and Jason, I had been on the fence about starting my own business, but listening to you guys, starting November 1st, I'm going to go and start it. And what she did, and she's been grinding ever since. But to be able to have someone reach out to me and tell me, this episode touched me, for the fact that I was able to listen to two people I grew up with be successful at what they're doing, just inspired me to really step out of my comfort zone and do what I was supposed to do. And I feel like if I reach one person, I've done what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. That's a beautiful thing, man, to hear. And what that is because a lot of times we, especially men, we look for validation from other things. And that's where it's like, I'll serve everybody else, but I won't serve myself first, because we're looking for that validation. I mean, when I played sport, my dad was one of my coaches in high school. And so I didn't care at all what anybody else had to say. I just wanted my dad to walk past me at the end of the day and be like, just give me that head nod, like, good job. Like that's all I care. But I was looking for validation to confirm in myself what I believe to be true about myself. Am I good enough, and do I have what it takes? Those two questions. But what anybody coming to you, like that person came to you and was like, hey, listen, I decided to step out. That was a confirmation on the validation that you already know you bring to the table, of the value that you bring to the table. And that's what I love is having that. I love hearing stories like that, because that's just like, listen, man, that just confirmed the value that you bring for yourself, which you already know that you brought. You didn't need that person to validate that. But it's cool that he confirmed that for you, or they confirmed that for you, because you're like, yes. Sometimes we doubt ourselves. We're like, am I actually bringing value? I mean, you're a year in. I'm 2 years into the brotherhood, and there's still times I'm like, am I really doing good? Am I really doing good for other people? And it's like, no. We're good. We're bringing value. Men are being the best version of themselves. They're expanding now. They're doing things in their community. They're building things. They're helping people out in their community. Their families are stronger. Their kids are stronger. I mean, all of those different things that are occurring. I'm like, yeah. So when somebody's like, man, I can't, like your episode, like I listened to that episode and it did something for me. That's just a confirmation of what you've already validated in yourself. And that is a beautiful thing. I love those. Those are the stories I love here.
Yeah. Those are the ones I love. I love when people reach out to me and be like, hey, this episode was cool. I enjoyed this part of it, and this really helped me out. That's what really drives me to grind, to keep doing. Like in June, I felt myself getting a little burnt out. So I took almost most of June to recharge and really get back to what I was doing. And once I did that,
can I ask you something? Can I ask you something real quick about that? Did you feel bad about taking that break?
No.
Good. Perfect. Because a lot of people feel bad for taking that break.
I had been grinding awesome. And doing what I was supposed to do. I needed that break. I needed to unplug. I needed to unplug from everything, from social media, from everything. Like no podcasting, nothing.
Yeah. And I asked that because a lot of guys feel bad for taking that break. I'm one of those that feel bad for taking that break, because it's like, if I take a break, I'm not doing anything. Therefore, I'm not accomplishing anything.
I was doing something. I was doing something. I was enjoying my vacation.
Correct. Absolutely.
Enjoying my vacation. So that's what I was doing, was just enjoying my vacation. And I have a vacation coming up towards the end of this month where I'm taking the wife away for 5 days. So
nice.
It's just being able to just enjoy life. Like, being able to work and make money is cool, but you also need to enjoy life. You need to go do things and celebrate all your little whatever. It doesn't matter how small the accomplishment is. Celebrate it.
Yes, totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree with that, man. And that's, guys aren't good at doing that, especially if you have that athletic mentality, or like, it's like Emmitt Smith. I love that commercial back in the day. He's like, they won the Super Bowl, and then he's underneath that bench press, and then he puts it up, and he's like, you won the Super Bowl, Emmitt. Now what are you going to do? And then he just takes it back off the rack and just starts going. It's like he had a 20-second pause, and it's like, let's go to the next thing. And we don't celebrate ourselves enough. One of the things that we do in the Brotherhood every week to start our meetings is wins for the week. And it doesn't matter how big it is or how small, we got to celebrate those. And as a group, we celebrate that together. Like, yeah, dude, that's awesome. Like, that's cool. And that's something that's important, because we don't do that enough. We just accomplish, go to the next thing, accomplish, go to the next thing. And then it gets stuck in that wheel.
So in your podcast, do you release it weekly, or?
I actually haven't done one for a little bit. Because I kind of changed things up. I had it as a Purpose Infused Men's podcast, so I'm changing up to the Purpose Infused Brotherhood podcast. So I'm changing things up a little bit, and so I haven't done one for a little bit, but we're going to get back into that, because it's looking at kind of utilizing that content to get out. I felt that, when was it? I would say, what was it, June? Last June, my brain literally just shut off, because I was putting a ton of content out. I was podcasting, newsletter, this, that. And I was like, literally, my brain just said, the heck with you, I ain't working anymore. And I literally, for the life of me, could not come up with anything. Like, nothing was coming. I'm trying to think of a topic for the day, for the week, for the month. Like, nothing was coming. It just said, you need to stop. So I did. And I, just like you, I took that time off. And I think one of the reasons why, one of my great lessons I learned there is, just like you said, it was good to take off. I needed that, because I was always I wasn't the one who would take. I would feel bad if I'm like, no, I'm going to stop. But what I was doing is I I was taking busyness or an action or this task to represent my worth in the world. And that's not the case. I was relating it to that instead of going, no, I bring value no matter what. And I can take that time off for myself to recharge. And it was great. It was probably about like 3 weeks I took off. And then I had a conversation with one of my buddies that does coaching, Tim Bass from out California with Here's Veritas. Awesome dude, like awesome dude. And we were kind of at the same spot. And we're like, dude, my brain won't work. I'm like, my brain won't work. And then we started talking, and all of a sudden, poof, and then all of a sudden, all the creativity just came back because it was that recharge. And, you know, for me, that's something that is important now to me that I learned along the way. I mean, I'm 40 years old and I'm now learning that, like, hey, you should take a pause and break a little bit, you know, at 40 years old.
Yeah. It's so many things I'm learning now at 40.
Right.
There's so many things. It's like now I'm feeling like right now I'm hitting my stride. I'm really, all right. I'm just really getting my feet under me and really doing the things that I'm meant to do, and really focus on what the task that is at hand. Like I know what I'm meant to do now, and it's continue to put out the content that I'm putting out and keep reaching out to the people that I'm reaching out, and just things are just like I said, things are falling into place.
Yeah, and it feels good, man. It feels good, and that's what I think you and I both want that for other people. It doesn't have to be podcasting or talking or doing what we do. It could be doing plumbing. It could be working this or working here. It could be at the working at a grocery store or something like it. It doesn't matter. Wherever you're at, you're in that flow of your life, and you know, in this space here, I'm being my greatest self. I'm giving my greatest self because I have taken care of myself in order to be able to do so. And that's like, man, it feels good to be in flow instead of just in the monotony that life could be or can be. And that to me, man, it's purposeful. It's intention. It's moving forward. It's providing value. It feels good, man. And
it does. Sometimes I feel people could feel the way I feel when I do what I do. Like just being able to do this and speak to people that I speak to, and see their reaction, and see when I say something and they're like, they probably sometimes they don't expect me to say that, or they're like, wow, that was kind of good. Like, hey. but that's years of me also self-development. That's me reading the books and looking for the mentors and me searching. Again, it's me searching, looking for me to grow.
Yeah. And it's think about if we can, and again, one of the things I love and what we do, and one of the big goals of the brotherhood is not only to help men in our age. Usually the guys who are part of our brotherhood, they're anywhere from that 30 to like 60 range, who have families, kids, married, things like that. But think about if we have brothers in our group that have kids that are growing up, young kids, teenagers, stuff like that. But think about those guys are teaching these guys like, hey, man, I'm living with purpose and intention. They're seeing dad come into the house with a different purpose and intention than what they used to. And this is the cool thing is actually my cousin's one of those, one of our brothers, and his son's 14 now. But his son has already said to him, like, Dad, you're different, man. I love it. Like, I'm like, that's cool. Like, so I'm like, yeah, like as in the conversation we have together, he's like, man, my son's like, Dad, you're different. And I love it. And I'm like, dude, that just melts my heart, because that's the whole reason we do what we do, is being the example for our kids. And think about what he's seeing. Think about, he's seeing dad grow and change and talk about things that nobody else is talking about. These guys ain't talking about this. These ain't. But my dad's talking about his feelings. He's talking about being hurt. He's talking about having excitement for his life. He's talking about living with purpose. He's like, so you have a younger generation now thinking like, damn, what's my purpose? Why am I here? And that's like, for me, that is so cool. It's like, that's what you're doing too, is we not only can help where we're at and the people we serve closely like that, but we can also serve the younger generation. And think if you can give them the information that you know now when they're like 20 or like 15 or 16 or in their teenage years, so that way they don't have to get to that point. Like that's what I don't want for my kids. I have 3 kids, so I have two teenage daughters and a son who's 9, and I just don't want them to ever get to 35 and go through what I went through, because and that chokes me up too, thinking about going that is like, because I know the hell I went through, and I don't want them to go through it because it sucked. You know what I mean? Like it was bad.
But see, the difference is they have you now.
Yeah.
They have the you now. You didn't have that.
Correct.
You didn't have that outlet. You didn't have that resource. So they have that in you now. So it's in a way you've started laying the foundations
Correct.
in the right direction and
absolutely,
and breaking the cycle, which a lot of us in our generation have to do.
Yeah.
Is break that cycle that we've come from, where and it's not our parents' fault. This is how they were raised.
No. Yeah.
So and that's what a lot of us fail to realize. It's not there. A lot of people still hung up on blaming their parents for everything that went wrong in their life.
Yeah.
It's not their fault. They were raised a certain way. They were brought up a certain way. And we're at an age now that we have a lot of resources to be able to help us.
Yeah.
Through these times.
Yeah, and that's because it's generations what we were taught. We didn't come out of the womb knowing anything. You know, we were all taught it, or we learned it some way, and to break some of those cycles and stuff that are going on are necessary for good things to happen. So yeah, man, I love what you're doing. I love how you're impacting. I love that you're living with purpose, with intention. You're waking up every day. You're excited about life. And that's what we want everybody to feel. Excited about life, moving forward, and being like, listen, at the end of the day, I know I left it all in the field. That's every day. Because I don't know if I'm going to get tomorrow, but ultimately it's everybody's choice to leave it all in the field every day. And that's what you're doing. That's what I'm doing. And the people listening to this, that's what you're going to do too.
All right, Clay. So now is the time for you to promote everything you're doing, like every social media.
Just throw it all out there. Let it rip.
Throw it all out there.
Awesome. Well, I run the Purpose Infused Brotherhood, and what we do is we bring driven men together to build, battle, and bond. And what that means is we build foundations, and you just used that word. We build foundations to strengthen ourselves and in strengthen the relationships we build with others. We battle through life's everyday struggles to be the best versions of ourselves, and we bond as a family to lift each other up through ownership and accountability. And anywhere if that's sitting here, because one thing we talked about people being on the fence is a lot of guys are like, I'm on the fence of maybe join. Like, I feel like this would be good, but maybe that's stupid. If you're on the fence, listen, just go to buildbattlebond.com. www.buildbattlebond.com. I have a 3-day video training there. You can check it out. It goes into Build Battle Bond. It gives you a video day each day, and it gives you an action strategy that you can implement right away. Check it out. If you want more information after that, you can link up with me. We'll have a chat just to see that. And we look at going into our Purpose Infused Brotherhood. We do an initiation process. It's an 8-week process that goes through the life cycle of a phoenix. And what we're going to do is you're going to bring phase 1, you're going to bring death to the old self. Phase 2, you're going to give birth to the new purpose infused man. And phase 3, we're going to get initiated into the brotherhood, because we call it a phoenix cycle. You've been through this all in your life. You've done it. I've done it. We're going to continue to do it. Just like the phoenix, we're going to burn ourselves down. And then out of the ashes of the old self, we're going to build a brand new self. That's the man that we really want to be for ourselves, our families, our communities, and everything else like that too. So on social media, just type in Purpose Infused Brotherhood. I'll be there, and purposeinfusedbrotherhood.com. You can get some more information, but go to buildbattlebond.com. Free 3-day video training from me. You'll know whether you want some more information after that too. So.
Cool, that's cool. I'll put everything in the description once I release it, so you'll be able to find it down below in the description when I do release it. So I appreciate you being on the show, brother, man. It was great being able to speak to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right, so now it is time for shout outs. Big shout out to my Real Wise family, King Sace, Bobby J. Love you guys. Big shout out to my wife, Fina. Love you, baby. Appreciate everything you do for me. And a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless you. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out. Oh, I switched it now.
Thanks for listening. Listen on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, and TuneIn. Find us on social media on Twitter at wise_b_blunt, Instagram at wise_b_blunt, and a Facebook fan page, www.facebook.com/wise76. Check back soon for new episodes. Until next time, peace out.